We haven't seen acting legend Jack Nicholson on screen in a while, and it's looking more likely that we never will again. Let's break down the latest reveal about the actor's life that's got everyone talking. After appearing in Western TV shows, soap operas, and on stage, he made his film debut in 1958, playing the lead role in the low-budget teen movie The Crybaby Killer, produced by B-movie impresario Roger Corman. Their relationship led to a huge leap forward for Nicholson's career. In 1967, Corman tapped Nicholson to write the screenplay for his psychedelic film The Trip, starring Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper. Corman said to Flavor Wire, "His career wasn't really doing that much at that time. I knew he had experience with LSD, so I hired him as a writer." Corman's scrappy circle of actors and artists were key players in the burgeoning countercultural film movement, and Fonda, Hopper, and Nicholson reunited for the hippie biker classic Easy Rider in 1969. Easy Rider follows two hippie drifters, Billy and Wyatt, as they make their way via motorcycle from Los Angeles to New Orleans. Along the way, they encounter a free love commune, drugs, and suspicious townsfolk. They also meet Nicholson's George Hansen, an alcoholic ACLU lawyer and self-described square. It's George who articulates the film's us versus them mentality.
Oh no. What you represent to them is freedom.
After Easy Rider, Jack Nicholson spent the 1970s banging out some of the best performances of his or any actor's career. He rang in the 1980s with what has become one of his best-known films, The Shining. In his book, Stanley Kubrick and Me, 30 Years at His Side, Kubrick's longtime assistant Emilio D'Alessandro recalled the director explaining why he was determined to cast Nicholson, writing, "You'll see everything about Jack is perfect for this role. His expression, even the way he walks. He doesn't need anything extra to play this part. It's all already there inside him." Nicholson took to the murderous Jack Torrance like a fish to water. Kubrick and D'Alessandro were convinced of Nicholson's genius, but upon the release of The Shining in 1980, critics were less forgiving. The Washington Post lambasted the clownish performance by Nicholson, doing impressions of the Big Bad Wolf, Quasimodo, and the films of Lon Chaney. Even Stephen King criticized the performance, telling Deadline, "The character of Jack Torrance has no arc in that movie. All he does is get crazier. In the movie, there's no tragedy because there's no real change." Time has been kind to The Shining, which is now considered a horror masterpiece, and many publications have changed their tune since 1980. Even after decades of achieving critical acclaim and accolades, the 1990s saw Jack Nicholson maintaining a soft spot for B-movie-style horror and lower-budget films that appealed to younger fans. Indeed, an underrated Nicholson film, Tim Burton's 1996 satire Mars Attacks, recalls some of the actor's early freewheeling productions. According to Burton, who was familiar with Nicholson's cartoonish abilities from their time making Batman, the actor was eager to dive into Mars Attacks. Burton told Artsbeat LA in 1996, "I remember that at first Jack wanted to create a multi-role tour de force performance. When I asked him which part he wanted to play, he replied, 'How about all of them?' As a concession, Burton developed two parts for Nicholson, one opposite Glenn Close, the other opposite Annette Bening." Although Nicholson has left the door open for the possibility of another big-screen appearance, Nicholson's last feature film role came in the 2010 romantic comedy How Do You Know? Far from a commercial or critical hit, the film was widely panned and bombed at the box office. The result was disappointing because Nicholson had previously collaborated with writer, director, and producer James L. Brooks on both Terms of Endearment and As Good as It Gets. Each of those films earned Nicholson an Oscar win. Clearly, the third time wasn't the charm for this creative pairing. Brooks hasn't written or directed a feature film since How Do You Know? And Nicholson quietly made it his swan song. Since then, he's made a couple of appearances in the spotlight, but never in a true acting capacity. For instance, in 2015, Nicholson gave a short presentational monologue as part of the Saturday Night Live 40th anniversary special. In a 2013 interview with Vanity Fair, Nicholson said that he was not yet retired, but he admitted feeling less of a drive to act. However, he told the outlet, "The movie business is the greatest business, but I only want to do films that move people, films about emotions and people." Without question, Jack Nicholson is one of the most famous actors in modern Hollywood. His distinctive snark and expressive face made him an icon with one of the most impressive resumes in the business. Nicholson has changed the face of cinema with roles in genre-defining films like The Shining, Chinatown, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Batman, A Few Good Men, The Departed, and several more. But as the years march on, it seems more and more likely that Nicholson won't star in a film again. Nicholson has never officially announced that he's done with acting. Still, it's been over a decade since the star's last major role on the big screen. Some recent reports indicate that we may never see Nicholson in another film. In a November 2023 episode of his podcast WTF, Mark Maron briefly discussed Nicholson's career with the actor's longtime friend and famed record producer Lou Adler.
He's doing whatever he really wants to do.
Yeah.
He wants to be quiet.
Yeah.
Adler added, he wants to eat what he wants. He wants to live the life he wants. Maron then relayed a story suggesting that Nicholson truly is done with acting, saying, a friend of mine wanted to put him in a movie. He had a conversation with him, but Jack says, I don't want to do it. He goes, you know what I did today? I sat under a tree and I read a book. Laughing, Adler responded, that sounds like Jack. In all likelihood, Nicholson has played his last movie character. While that's a bittersweet thing to acknowledge for film fans, it's also more than fair. Nicholson was in his early 70s when he appeared in How Do You Know? And he's 86 now. At some point, retirement calls to everyone. But no actor has left a more lasting mark on the industry than he has. With a whopping 12 Academy Award nods, Nicholson is the most Oscar-nominated male actor in history, tied with Katharine Hepburn for second overall. Behind Meryl Streep's staggering 21 nominations, his 3 wins tie him with Daniel Day-Lewis, Streep, Frances McDormand, Walter Brennan, and Ingrid Bergman, all of whom share second place behind Hepburn's 4 wins. From noir detective movies and gangster flicks to psychological dramas and romantic comedies, Nicholson has dabbled in almost every genre of film. Of course, not every Nicholson film has been a home run. The 1992 crime biopic Hoffa was meant to be a true star vehicle for Nicholson, but it landed mixed reviews and widespread criticisms. The 2003 comedy Anger Management also fell flat. But who knows, maybe he'll save his formal swan song for one last Oscar grab. Nicholson has often been a controversial figure in his personal life, and his career has encompassed everything from instant classics to full-on flops. But at this point, no one would fault him for choosing to read a good book under the trees over returning to the spotlight.
What the hell's wrong with freedom, man? That's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what it's all about, all right.